Hello, and welcome. I'm sure if you're watching this, you know what's going on, and if you don't, I'd like to direct you to the Session 12 summary for the beginning of the second arc. Our heroes are currently fending off a raid of Shadowspawn from within the walls of Faldara Keep, with Maldeth having just escaped making off with the Horn of Valir as he scampers his ratty behind across the courtyard with his coterie of various dark friends and bestial Trollocs. A new form of shadow spawn, known as a Shaidar Madin, or Shadow Seeker, similar to a Fade in look and build, is engaging Farad'n and Eilon and seemingly coordinating the movements and attacks of every Trolloc, Fade, and Draghar on the field. As it attacks, it bellows lines of a dark prophecy foretelling the end of the pattern and the world. Seas would boil and the deserts would freeze as a great dark comet appears in the heavens before smashing to the earth and ending all life, thereby reshaping it. The words appear above its head in the sky, written in flame. This seems to overwhelm some of the party. Gina, in her slightly agitated state, points her ter'angreal wand at the Shadow Seeker and a fire blast erupts from it. This wounds the Shadow Seeker, though not enough to stop it from seriously injuring Farad'n and Eilon both. Farad'n takes his spear and throws it over towards Gina, asking her for healing upon his teleportation to her. The Shaidar Madin taunts Adel, wounding him, and Trollocs surround Eilon, nearly taking him out. Sayoka, instead of helping, sees someone across the field and screams out, "Balin!" and makes a beeline for the figure, engaging them in combat. Gina senses anger and fear and a mix of emotions from him through the link. She also feels something try to come between her and her contact with Saidar, almost like a shield woven by a channeler. When this happens, the Shadow Seeker roars in frustration, looking directly at her. It seems this creature can separate channelers from this true source with effort, and Gina just overcame that fearsome ability. Sayoka then gets stabbed in the gut by this stranger Balin and falls to the ground. Adel slays the Shadow Seeker and lets out a piercing, ear-shattering wail. And no, Aliana, not that kind of wail. The screech is painful, even potentially deadly, and it overwhelms Eilon, sending him into unconsciousness. As it thrashes in the death throes that Myrddraal are often known for, the other shadow spawn in the courtyard and keep all fall over and begin to die as if they were puppets, and their strings had been cut at once. As Beric fires arrows at the Shadow Seeker to fell it, and Farad'n pursues the fleeing dark friends who have abandoned the chest in hopes of escape, he manages to knock one unconscious and kill another. They manage to stop the dark friends from taking the Horn of Valir with them as they leave. They saved the horn. After the fight, when Gina has healed everyone she can and the safety of the keep has been ensured, the group gets together for a soak in the Shienaran bathhouses. After such a long few days, they needed the time to relax, and everyone needed some time to get to know one another. Eilon brought his elven bath ducky. Farad'n, fearing that much water, brought a pool noodle, which he named a water spear, and eventually floated upon it without touching the water. As they sat there and they attempted to pull Farad'n into the water while he stabbed at them with his spears, Sayoka eventually stopped sulking long enough to tell the group that his parents were the king and queen of Norvos. His parents were dark friends, working to ensure the downfall of thousands, and so they invaded the southern nations. One of the 5 great captains, Corlin Bryn of Andor, was sent to deal with the invasion, and Sayoka's father died in the subsequent battles. After Bryn won, His mother was sent to Andor to be put on trial, and Sayoka and his brutish older brother were sent to be in the custody of Bryn. He raised the political prisoners as his own sons, with the intent of Balin returning home to rule on his 19th birthday, until Sayoka's elder brother left home. He was presumed dead as he never returned, and no one heard anything about him after that. Showing them scars and wounds from his childhood, Sayoka tells them of Balin's cruelty and desire to follow in their father's footsteps. And you guessed it, that was indeed Balin, the man that stabbed him in the courtyard. Stabbing his hand with a blade, Sayoka tells them all that he has tow towards them, and swears to never abandon them again, as well as swearing to kill his brother Balin. Eilon, too, has some secrets to divulge. The feeling that caused him to leave the battle was Maldeth, and Eilon quickly tells them of a conversation he had with the grime-covered Dark Friend. The man tells Eilon that he must seek out the Eelfinn, who may have answers on how he can avoid the madness that plagues all men who can channel, and that these answers can be found in Kalduth. The party has several opinions on this, most of which revolve around the idea that Maldeth is obviously not to be trusted, even if his information is accurate. Eilon agrees to do some reading in a few libraries and some research on the Finn before making any rash decisions. After the bath, when everyone is relaxed and clean and perhaps a little closer to each other, the group hunts down their prizes from the festival and begins to divide them up. Adel gets a suit of armor, Maestrom gets 500 gold, and Eilon gets a fancy set of armor as well. Theoden gets a belt knife made from the horn of a giraffe, and the group loses their crap over it. It was pretty great. And Gina takes the book that could show her how to learn ancient weaves from the Age of Legends. The next morning, a messenger arrives, as Theoden is speaking with the group, asking the party to dine with Lord Jagad that night as thanks for their help in securing the keep. Dining with the party will also be Gitara Adalorna, Watcher of the Seals, the Flame of Tar Valon, the Amerlin Seat, and Aes Sedai of the Red Aja. While Theoden sits with the party, and he informs them of an Aiel prophecy, it seems that it is centered around their friend Vanderlyn Elrond, whom Selenia believes to be the Dragon Reborn. It seems that he is actually he who comes with the dawn, the Kara Karn, a leader and possible savior for the Aiel. He tells the party that the Aiel are succumbing to infighting, warring amongst themselves to the exclusion of all else while they wait on the Kara Karn. Theoden says that in his talks with the Wise Ones, they have told him that they believe Van should come to the Waste and fulfill his destiny, and fulfill the Aiel's, after he goes to Kalduth. The party is somewhat stunned, but when it is suggested that Van go to the Waste, Sayoka immediately agrees, saying that getting the young man away from Selenia Sedai is a good idea. At this point, Beric mentions that Rem may take umbrage with Sayoka openly disagreeing with his Aes Sedai so much, and he may not let the Emmonsfielder go, if she does not wish it so. This sparks a rather heated argument between the dwarf Beric and the Tamadoran channeler Gina. After this, they break apart. They visit the local blacksmith, who is a dwarf coincidentally, who sells them a few weapons and cautions Maestrom not to dawdle out adventuring in the world. Their homeland will need them before long, and they should do their duty, the dwarf says, rather than feel unworthy of it. Eilon and Theoden are with them, because Eilon needs to find a sword, and Theoden, who does not use swords, at the very least knows good weapons, and Eilon trusts his judgment. As Theoden, Maestrom, and Eilon talk amongst themselves and speak with the dwarf, who is Lord Jagad's personal smith, Theoden starts to become heated, and his anger bubbles over. And as he seethes, a tail pops out of his Cadden sword, long and thin, like a monkey's. Unsure of what this means, Farad'n leaves the room to find some answers before Macerim can calm him down. As Eilon speaks with the dwarf, Betal, and buys a sword that will not be etched by the acidic, poisonous blood of a Fade, they part on friendly terms. For two nations that have enmity for the other as great as White Cloak and Aes Sedai beefs. As they return to their lodging, Macerim buys traditional Shienaran robes for the horse wedding that they planned back in Bendersham due to a friggin' typo, guys. A flaming typo from me. And Eilon seeks out a tux made for the horse. No, I'm not joking. These dorks actually married the horses. With all their buying and wandering done for the day, they head back to their rooms. On the way, they see Selenia Sedai in the courtyard, arguing with Sayoka. The argument goes nowhere, and Sayoka stalks off to the training yards. Macerim follows, and after some sparring, Sayoka opens up to them, telling Macerim that he doesn't agree with Selenia's methods. He believes her treatment of the Edmundsfielders is a problem. I believe something about not being a lamb sent off to the slaughter was mentioned. Macerim thinks that their fates as Ta'Veren prevent Selenia from acting any other way, which Sayoka believes is an excuse. As they spar some more, Macerim helps Sayoka accept his heritage as a borderlander, who feels more Andoran than anything, after they share their origin as a commoner before being adopted by Lord Jagad. Deciding not to let their lives be controlled by fate just for one night, Macerim and Sayoka end their sparring with better outlooks. Gina spent her day with the book, reading for 10 hours. The idea of learning a weave from the Age of Legends was too enticing, and with little else to do, she enjoyed the serenity of Lady Dabra Jagad's personal gardens as she read. With little else to do, and other than prepare for the dinner party, the group dresses for such an impressive and imposing guest list. Not only will Lady Kenamora and Lady Dabra be there, as well as Gitara Adalorna, the Amarlin seat, so too will several sisters of varying Aja be there, as well as the Amarlin's keeper. Everyone is presented in their best, and Macerim is wearing a dress, which makes them feel somewhat uncomfortable. With any luck, there won't be a need like this for quite some time. And if there is, we can always put Adel in the dress next time instead. Since Zakub was brought with them, and Farad'n recently sprouted a flaming tail from his behind, Farad'n asks the monkey about the changes happening in his body. And Zakub has no idea why the tail is there either. Whoops. Taking a seat by a few sisters, Gina decides that rather than act as if she is on the defensive in a room full of Aes Sedai, who are aware that she can channel, she instead goes on the attack. Asking the sisters about battle weaves and how to survive the chaos of battle, she's met with very little real answers. The Green Sisters tell her that unless there's a ter'angreal rediscovered to aid channelers in battle somehow, then warders are the only real option. Looking around the table, Gina approaches the Yellow Sister sitting there, ready to ask them all about healing, specifically those weaves designed for the battlefield. As she talks with them, a Yellow Sister she recognizes speaks with her. Ketal Shinya of the Yellow Aja is quite firm, quite adamant when she tells Gina that only full-fledged Aes Sedai are allowed the knowledge that the Yellow Aja has obtained since the breaking. Any other but a sister would surely pay a hefty price for such questions. With that, Gina leaves, sits down, and stops bothering the sisters, which was probably the smartest thing to do from the start. After that, Lord Kenamora and the Keeper of the Chronicles stand. After the Amarlin is introduced, Lord Jagad pulls out his family's sword and hands it to Macerim, telling them that the time has come for Mace to accept their role as Lord Jagad's adopted heir, as the Lord had borne no natural children. When Maestrom acts as if they feel unworthy of the sword because they are a commoner, Lord Jagad responds rather angrily. Jagad seems offended somewhat by Maestrom's view on this, claiming that he chose Maestrom to be his heir, raising them with the love and the devotion that he would have given his own children should he have had any. After telling Maestrom what it means in Shinar to be of noble blood, what it means to speak for the people, to be their lord, he inevitably says, "The time has come for you to accept your duty, I think. Take the family sword and be my heir, Sovereign Maestrom Eldar." After a moment, Maestrom accepts their duty. During this dinner, as I said, Gina was chatting up the members of the Ajas, prodding and poking, setting them on their toes as often as she can. I think Gina just likes to irritate Aes Sedai, honestly. As she sits there, making them nervous, and almost being yanked into novicehood again, the Greens try to take Eilon, Adel, and Maestrom, as well as Sayoka, as warders. Ferrodin, they realize, is a challenge none of them are up for. Perhaps this is due to the enmity that has built up between the Tower and the Aiel in this Third Age come again. This could end up a potential issue for any of the party, but Eilon and Sayoka can channel. Beric actually starts a drinking contest with Lord Jagad, though. I'm not sure how. And wins, everyone. Can you believe that? Well, at least I let him have this one. Maestrom leaves the party and goes to drink alone, and is caught by Ferrodin, who brings some rice alcohol that he found while at the dinner with the Lord of the Keep. After making the wise decision not to sneak into the women's quarters in a Shinar in town, they stop, and Ferrodin questions Maestrom about the issues that they're having. They talk, and Maestrom admits their apprehension at being a leader. They were only ever a soldier, not a noble or a real leader, and doing what they did on the battlefield was only what they had to do. Encouraging them, Ferrodin and Mace drink, and they drink and talk and carouse until the Shinaran heir feels a little better about their change in standing. Gina seeks out Eilon, and the elf is in his room. The walls are brightly lit with candles and oil lamps, with nary a shadow in sight. Eilon and Gina begin to talk, and she asks Eilon if he trusts her. Giving him the book to read for the night, as he won't be sleeping, the two channelers begin practicing the act of linking with one another, and passing control of the link. After some time, Gina returns to her room, waiting up for Maestrom, who never returns. As it's hard to go back to one's room after getting stone-blind drunk and passing out with Ferrodin in the courtyard, right? As she waits, there is a knock at the door. Selenia Sedai is there, alone. She says she had to avoid suspicion from the other sisters, which immediately sets Gina on edge. The Aes Sedai were ready to snatch up a young woman with so strong a spark born in her, until Selenia helped to make them think that she was an Aiel Wise One apprentice, through Aes Sedai manipulation and wordplay. They were under the impression that Aiel women did not channel, and this revelation may cause some problems, but this was not Selenia that started that lie. She only seized the opportunity to divert them from Gina. I guess the group will deal with that when they get to it. She tells Gina that she is sending Van to Kalduth, and then intends to send him to Norvos after, where the Horn of Valir is supposed to be presented to the Norvosi king and queen. Doing this should rally the borderlands to him, along with Andor and many of the southern nations as well. Talk of the borderland nations inevitably leads to talk of her warder, Alrem Mandragoran. They begin to speak of his future and the developing hold Jaina has on Rem. Selenia seems to approve, though circumstances and his perception of his own duties will prevent him from breaking his vow, and forcing him to do so would cause resentment on all sides. She's starting to show signs of being intoxicated, and this seems to be odd, as Selenia has never let herself be out of control. As Jaina and Selenia talk, it becomes clearer that this is an effect from Rem, which angers Jaina greatly. Asking how Selenia is doing, Selenia lets slip that the Aes Sedai who was torn apart was a close personal friend of hers, and is struggling with that loss. Even as a Blue, knowing that her cause would bring many losses into her life, this was something she may not have been prepared for. I'm being drunk, or feeling the effects of being drunk from Rem, is not helping. Selenia stands to leave, and Jaina asks that Rem be sent up to talk with her. I think with the intent of giving him a very stern talking to about this. Selenia says that will not be a problem, with a hint of a smile, and goes to leave. And this is where we call the session, with quite a bit having happened, obviously. I am your storyteller, Darian, and this is yet another episode of the Giraffivores campaign. Thank you for tuning in and listening as we begin to tell the story of the turning of the Third Age. Come again.